So you see, we've got some blemishes here and there in these places here, and we've got some color inconsistencies, right, that we really want to blend together to make this image look a lot cleaner. And so the reason I always start with color is that because some of these blemishes that you can see here don't actually, just a color adjustment will fix it, right? You don't have to take away the actual texture. So I'll start with colors. I've got my mixer brush is what I'm going to use, and then these are my settings up top here. And so then I'm just going to start just cleaning up. And really what I'm going to do is, if you'll look at the biggest places to kind of keep an eye on is where the colors within each of these color profiles on the face touch, right? And then where you can see those colors distinctly is where I really want to spend the most focus. But for the most part, I just really want to clean up these colors so that they're nice and smooth and blended together in a way that makes sense. The way the mixer tool works, think of it as if you have a paintbrush and you start painting, right? You paint one area and it's going to pull that color from the area in which you're painting over through the area in which you're painting to. So it's like drag, click and drag, you click and drag, click and drag. Now, it's not, I mean, I can say two things, right? It could be easy to overdo this, right? And you don't want to take out all the differences in color. But for the most part, go at it. And then, I mean, if you don't like it, control Z that mother. You know, like, it's not hard to do, right? And then so here we've got this eye, got this little shadow under here. I'm just gonna lightly paint under there. Clean up this area right here. Right here. Kind of smooth some of this color in here. Same thing here, I'm just gonna paint in here. And one thing I used to do a lot when I was first like new to retouching is I'll always go in and I wanted to hit those blemishes first, right? I wanted to make sure like acne and bumps and things like that were taken out first. Until I realized that a lot of what you see in retouching is just the color. It's the color, it's the shadows, it's the highlights, it's the differences in colors that really make all the difference. Occasionally you guys will want to zoom out and take a look, right? I'm gonna hold Alt, click background, and you can see what's changed, right? We're already well on our way. So I'm gonna get in there, clean some of this up. I don't like this highlight as much, so I'm gonna bring in some of these colors here to kind of dampen that just a little bit. I'm gonna paint this way. Now we do have some very specific blemishes here that we're gonna need to take out as well, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Some right there, so a little stray hair there. This is a part you wanna be extra careful with here, because if you clean it up the wrong way, you can really make it look unnatural, and we don't want that, right? We want to blend that color down. So I'm going to pull some up and then pull some back down so that it gently blends out. Yeah. But again, if you do too much, Control Z that bitch. No big deal. Let's go. We're going to clean this. Clean that up. Good. I'm going to zoom out. Oh yeah, that looks great. That looks fantastic. Fantastic. This over here looks a little much. I'm gonna just blend some of that down. I think this looks good, honestly. Now, a mistake that you can make as you're retouching your photos is to like take extra care for the face and then just completely forget about all this, right? We want the texture here, but we don't want it to be completely like unsmooth versus like the face, because that's too much of a contrast and it's so close. Whereas like a photo like this, the eye is really going to draw you in, but then you do look at the rest of the image, right? And so you want to make sure that the rest of the image is blended as well. This is why I like the mixer brush. It's relatively low effort. I mean, once you get this thing down, it's really difficult to mess this up. Right? But what's great is that you also get the consistency of not having, you know, the face look super plasticky. You can get really good looking photos just using that brush. There we go. I do like that. So I'm gonna stop there for now, and then I'm gonna start focusing on some of these actual blemishes. Actually, let me hit this. Let me make sure that this is in color. Yeah, look at that. All right, so let's go in here. I'm gonna grab my healing brush tool, or J, and I'm gonna go up to the textures layer here, and I'm gonna hit some of these textures while being careful not to. So I'm gonna sample aside from it and then do one of these numbers. And actually, it looks like some of these aren't really even textures. You see that? See how it's not really changing? Which means that it may be a color issue. So let's go back here, and instead of using the mixer brush, I'm gonna use the healing brush tool on the colors. Grab the colors. Yep, look at that, sample to the side. Paint on it, there you go. And just paint it down. You wanna get that skin looking smooth while still retaining the texture that is there. Wow, I can't even see most of it, look at that. It's nice. Let's get in here. Same thing. I do wanna come in here and clean some of this up too. This may be a texture thing here. So I may come in here and clean the textures up here. Let me go to textures layer. Yep, I'm gonna clean some of this up. Not really afraid of overdoing this. Let's get in there. Yeah, I like that. Same thing here. Let me go back to the colors layer. I got my healing brush tool out still. I'm gonna sample here and just clean that up. So the mixer brush wasn't necessarily strong enough for some of these spots, but as you can see, I've really barely touched the texture layer at all. And the good thing about that is you'll keep the skin looking really, really true to life, right? True to life. You want to maintain those pores, maintain the texture, while still making the photo look clean and nice. Let's go in there. Now I am going to jump into the textures layer again. Sample over here. Let's get some of that. And then this area right here. Back to the colors layer, same thing. Bada bing, bada boom. Easy, easy, easy. Look at that. Retouch is just about done. I'm gonna go back to the color layer one more time and just touch some of this. Get my hands on it. Sample next door. Hey neighbor, you got some milk? Because I am out. I will trade you. Frosted Flakes. Number 2, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, of course. Number 3, Honey Nut Cheerios. Comment below, what's your favorite cereal? All right, got it. So frequency separation is done, and I like the way this looks. So Alt, click the eyeball here. That's pretty good. Actually, I'm gonna touch this just a little bit more. I want this to be a little bit more blended up here. Right, while still maintaining the actual shape with the shadows there. Let's do that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm about done with my frequency separation. Let's go into some color grading. But first, I'm gonna close that frequency separation group down, and I'm gonna open up this adjustment layer here, and we're gonna do a curves adjustment layer. Let me pull this down so we can see the whole thing. Now we can play with this. I think the highlights are good where they are. I may bring it up just a little bit. Yeah, I think they're good right there. And I want to bring the shadows down just a little bit. Yeah, get a little bit of contrast. Before I end this, I'm going to do luminosity to keep the color the same and just touch the shadows. And I love that. That added a little bit of, yeah. A little bit of intensity to the skin there from a contrast perspective. Not too much, let's not do too much. About there. Want the highlights to be about there. I think that looks good. Good. Now we're gonna do the color grading. So I'm gonna do a gradient map here. So I'm gonna go down here to the adjustment layer. Now I'm gonna click gradient map. Actually, I'm gonna bring up 2 of them. So click gradient map and then click another gradient map. So I've got 2 of them. We can turn the eyeballs off on both of them. And then on the first one, I'm gonna add a little bit of gold color to the highlights. So I'm gonna name this gold, or you can name it orange, or you can name it mid-tones, whatever you like to name it. Now that I've got my, my gradient map selected, I'm gonna click up here and we're gonna change the gradient map by scrolling down through the presets, and I'm gonna use legacy gradients right here. I'm gonna open that. Once I'm in legacy gradients, I'm gonna scroll down to photographic toning, and this is gonna give me some photographic colors that we can potentially use, right? You've got your monochrome colors here, you've got brown, you've got some blues, just whatever you want to add, you can add, but I want to add a little bit more of an orange glow to her skin. So I'm going to click on that, then I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to go and change the blend mode to soft light. Now obviously this is really drastic, and that's not where we're going to leave it. But first, before I go and change anything, I'm going to blend it into my midtones and my highlights. I don't want this color in my shadows. For the shadows, I'll do a different color, but for now, let's double click on this layer. And then I'm going to pull it from the shadows. So I don't want this in the shadows. So I'm gonna click the underlying layer here, and I'm gonna pull this layer out of the shadow. So it's just in the highlights and the midtones. So it looks like 100 is good here. Now obviously this is too contrasty. You got some artifact here. We want to blend this into the highlights, from the midtones to the highlights. I'm gonna hold Alt or Option on a Mac, and it's gonna separate that, and you'll see now it starts to blend that color into the rest of the image. And actually, I think I'm not gonna go all the way to the highlights. I think about here looks good. So I'm gonna click OK. Now, if you look at it, see how it adds a little bit more color to those midtones, and overall it looks like a more even photo. I love the way that looks. Now I do want to balance this with a different color, and that color is going to be blue. So I'm going to turn this gradient map on. I'm going to change this over to soft light, and now I'm going to add a different color the same way. So I'm going to click up here, I'm going to go down to legacy gradients, and then I'm going to click photographic toning. Now you can select some of these and get an idea of what that color will look like, and specifically I'm going to be keeping an eye on the shadows and see kind of what I like here. And these are a little bit more teal than I like, and you can obviously edit these the same way, but I'm going to change the idea. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to go to blues, and you've got just another swath of just what the blues will look like, and you can get an idea of what it'll look like there. So I love that. I think I like that, at least for the shadows here. And we're gonna play with the opacity too, but for now, I'm gonna click OK on that. It's on soft light. We're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go into the gradient map, double click here, and then instead of going from the midtones to the highlights, I want it to be mainly in shadow. So I'm gonna pull the highlights down. So we're not gonna be in highlights with this, and I just want the shadows to be selected. So maybe about there will be good. I'm gonna hold Alt, click on this left side, and I'm gonna blend that into all the way down into the shadows here. About right there. I'm gonna click OK. And I think I like the way that looks. Let me see. Let me look at the opacity. If I drop it down a little bit. Actually, I think about there it looks good. Yeah, I love that. Oh, absolutely. So this is the before completely. This is the after. Before, after. And yeah, I think I'm good with this photo. There's some other things that you can obviously do, but I think I'm gonna leave it there because I think this looks exactly where I want it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.